Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to Live It Up. This is the show where we explore and discuss how to take your life to that next level and beyond. We cover health, wealth, relationships, and how to create a life you absolutely love. I'm your host and coach, Fletcher Ellingson. Amy is out today, so we're going to take the opportunity to talk with a local entrepreneur who's had a long and interesting journey. He's ridden the highs and lows of business, so I asked him to be on the show to share with us what makes him tick, what's been the secret to his success. Chances are you've heard of our guest, Russ McClellan. He's been in the real estate industry for a lot of years, and he's a busy guy and has been playing quite a game over the past year and a half. We're going to get to him and his story after the commercial. But before we get to that, I want to remind you that if you have questions that you would like us to answer on or off the air, you can email them directly to me at fletcher@fletcherellingson.com. And I want to also remind you that if you feel stuck in any area of your life, whether it's financially or in your health or in your relationships, get in action, reach out to us. You don't need to suffer. There are answers and solutions and ways to get unstuck and move forward powerfully. Now, let's get to today's email. It says, "Hey Fletcher, my wife and I make a good team around making a living and hitting our financial and thing goals. But other than that, we mostly argue. I mean, we can have fun too, but there just doesn't seem to be much connection. We have vastly different tastes and interests and ideas of what we want. We both actually look forward to when one of us is traveling for work. When we are apart, we seem to get along better. We don't talk about separating, we don't talk about divorce, but I guess maybe it's on my mind, and that's a bit scary. We have a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old son. Not sure what to do. What do you suggest? Thanks. Talk to you soon." All right. We're going to just call you Mr. X. Mr. X, first of all, I acknowledge you for reaching out. When others say reaching out for help is weak, we know that's false. Reaching out is a sign of strength, which means you're strong. So now let's get to your question and your concern. So you say you and your wife make a good team, but there's lots of arguing. You can have fun, but you feel disconnected, and you have 2 sons, and though you haven't discussed separating or divorce, it's beginning to enter your thinking. So what to do? Well, I have to make a lot of assumptions here, Mr. X. You didn't say there was mental or physical abuse. You didn't mention it. Mention if anyone was having an affair. So we will assume that there's not. I got to say this sounds like a lot of marriages. The parents are busy. They've got careers. They've got kids. It's easy and common for the parents to feel disconnected and become argumentative. And then what happens is that each of you or each of a person begins to look for ways to avoid each other. And you look for evidence to support that you're growing apart. Like you said, we have different tastes. We like different people, etc. But remember, all those things that you find different were actually what you found attractive in the beginning. I want to share what I think is a brilliant quote by Robert Heinlein. It says the following: "In absence of clearly defined goals, we become strangely loyal to performing the daily mundane until we become enslaved to it." I love that quote, and I'm suggesting that this may be what has happened to your relationship. In absence of clearly defined goals, we become strangely loyal to performing the daily mundane until we become enslaved to it. You see, a lot of people think about businesses and having business goals or health goals, but if a marriage doesn't have clearly defined goals, you'll become strangely loyal to performing the daily mundane until you become enslaved to it. And the fate of that marriage is then very predictable. You'll become strangely loyal to keeping a tally of when the other person fails in your eyes. You will become strangely loyal to keeping score of what is fair or unfair. You'll begin to resent, defend, accuse, manipulate, coerce, feel angry and isolated, and finally shackled. And you'll obsess over this until you feel that you can no longer take it, and then all you want is to feel free. And suddenly divorce or separation looks like that freedom. Now, You'll hear me say often on this show that what you focus on, you feel. What you focus on, you experience. What you focus on, you manifest. So, Mr. X, I want to ask you, what are you focusing on? Ask yourself, have you become or are you becoming strangely enslaved to it? It's easy to do, believe me, I know. It's easier to look for what doesn't work. It's easier to see the flaws and call attention to them. It's easier to give up, to give in, and it's more painful, and there's a huge cost. Mr. Rex, I didn't hear you mention counseling or reading books or trying anything to further your marriage, so my advice is this. If you want to create a new reality for yourself, a new reality, then you have to create a new personality. You cannot change your current reality with the same personality that you have. And don't put any of this on your wife. This is your marriage. It's 100% your marriage. She has her marriage too, for which she is 100% responsible. So get into massive action on yourself. See if you can read 2 or 3 books a month for the next year on personal development, becoming a phenomenal husband and becoming an outstanding father. Your situation is so predictable, and the only way to change its trajectory is for you to take massive action and change your personality. So who do you need to be to make your marriage work? What ways of being will be required? Start doing things another way than you normally do and see what happens. Start saying yes more. Become open to doing things you wouldn't normally do. Suggest new things. Now, will this be uncomfortable? Absolutely. And if it does feel uncomfortable, then you know that you're on the right track. Because when we move from what's known to unknown, it's going to be uncomfortable. But that's where change happens. It's time to get absolutely radical if you want to create radical results. And the only reason you're in this place today is because of your thinking and the absence of clearly defined goals. So, set yourself free by getting clear about the type of husband and father you want to be and who you need to be for your marriage. Now, I know you can do this, and I believe in you. All right, it's time to take a commercial break. We're going to be right back to visit with Mr. Russ McClellan when we return, so stay tuned. Hey everybody, welcome back to Live It Up. We are here talking today with Mr. Russ McClellan. Good to see you, Russ.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for being on the show, even though yesterday you had 102-degree temperature.
It's one of those days.
But you're a trooper, so thanks for showing up.
I appreciate the invite.
Yeah, so for those of us who don't know you out there, tell us a little bit, where do you work and what are you doing these days?
What am I doing these days? Well, I've been doing the same thing for a long time, but I own a Keller Williams office right here in Wenatchee. We also have a frontline team, which is one of many teams in our office at Keller Williams. What we now tend to hear a lot of in business powered by, we're powered by the umbrella of Keller Williams. Mm-hmm. But we have many teams all over North Central Washington now. In fact, I think we're over 50 agents. Mostly here in Wenatchee and East Wenatchee, but with Chelan and Leavenworth, Cashmere. So that tends to have been occupying a lot of my time and energy for the last year or so.
Good, and that's 12 months or 16 months, is it, or what?
Yeah, just about almost 16 months, I think, since we launched.
Yeah.
Just about a year since we transmitted to the franchise for the first time. So
you guys have been rocking and rolling to get up to 50 agents, which is just impressive as heck.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been like any journey, you learn, and sometimes you take 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, and sorry about my voice, I'm a little bit sick, but.
Yeah, no problem. Well, so I know this didn't happen overnight, and even before the 16 months, there was a lot that went into this to get you to the point where you're at today. So how many years have you been in this industry?
Almost 30, just about 30 years this year. I think I was a college kid playing basketball for the Wenatchee Valley Knights when I first went to work for Steve Still, who sadly just passed away, but was a great mentor and a great friend of mine. So I was 19 years old when I started, while I was going to college, and ended up finishing with a finance degree, and had a child, moved back, and grew up in Manson. So this was my roots and my family. Yeah. And so I've seen a lot of things evolve in the last 3 decades.
You're not dabbling. You're what we call a master, right?
I don't know. I think the longer I'm in business, the less I know, so I'm not sure.
See, that's exactly what a master would say. So.
Yeah, it's always changing. You know,
Yeah.
The world is always changing.
Well, tell me, why are you passionate about this? Because I know you are passionate about it. I've known you for a while, and every time we meet, you're got something that's up and coming and you're excited about. But what are you passionate about, and why in this industry?
You know, the interesting journey for me, you know, being from my early teenage years into my 20s and 30s and 40s, and now I'm 50 years old this year, in real estate in my hometown, and my journey for my family started long before me. My grandmother actually came to Manson on a covered wagon when she was 7 years old. Her name was Daisy Grimes, and passed away at 101. So I'm actually fourth generation. I joke around and say I'm almost a local. My kids have a shot at the title at fifth generation. But my dad was born in a little house in Manson. I grew up in a little apple orchard right in Manson, down the street from Blueberry Hills. My mom was the 1956 Apple Blossom Princess. My sister was a princess. I mean, all of that kind of leads me to the passion question, and that is twofold. I've realized over the years I really like helping and coaching, just like yourself, specifically in real estate. But with that comes balance, and with balance comes life coaching as a leader of any type, I think. And so helping people, you know, maybe change their life, helping them with a different direction, or perhaps make more money in a town where sometimes it's not easy to make when you add up, you know, fuel and daycare and sports and you have kids. I mean, we all have a different situation, but real estate is one avenue that people can do, especially with Keller Williams, a little bit or a lot. And I think that's exciting. And then the other component is trying to help with some legit affordable housing issues that I'm trying to focus on with my project. It's called Haystack, and some kind of revolutionizing construction methods we're working on, and
really,
I'm getting closer to being launched, so we'll see.
Cool. I'll look forward to hearing more about that.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, I imagine there's a lot of demands on your time. You're running a business. You're overseeing a lot of agents. Plus, you're doing your own deals. So a lot of demands on your time. So what do you do in all of that to keep yourself energized and focused, and your own fill up your own tank?
You know, about 5 years ago, I think, just, you know, and throughout my life, I've done different things. You know, I was always a three-sport athlete, so I always, you know, grew up in a small town, so played a lot of sports, and that's always been a big part of it. But as I've, you know, mature and as we get older, you know, sometimes you have to find different ways, because, you know, playing tackle football probably isn't in my cards right now.
Yeah.
I discovered hot yoga about 5 years ago with some great people and in a great environment, to where it accomplished a couple things for me. It kind of helps me clear my head, kind of gives me that 1 hour a day, hopefully a day, or at least 2 or 3 times a week, to where there's no phones, there's no email, there's no text message, there's no talking other than the instructor that's leading the practice. And the heat in the hot room and the energy in the hot room is something I'd never understood, coming from us. You know, somebody would have said, and, you know, 10 years ago I'd be doing hot yoga. I'd probably like, really? I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But I've embraced it, and it's really helped me stay balanced. It's helped me kind of meditate differently, because in today's world, as we know, in the last, you know, 5-10 years, things have gotten kind of crazy, where the phone is, you know, surgically implanted just about. It's not all good.
A lot of stimulus, right?
A lot of stimulus.
Now, I've never done hot yoga, but what is the temperature in there? I mean, I don't even know.
About 107.
Oh,
with
really,
about 30,
really hot.
35% humidity, which is the real issue. You turn that humidity up, and you get a bunch of people all in there, and, you know, the older you get, that kind of that heat helps you limber up a little bit too. So you're stretching, and, you know, they say you're as old as your spine is flexible, right? So, you know, for me, that's what has done it. But, you know, anything that in real estate, just like in a lot of businesses, when you're 100% all in, 100% of the time, it's easy to become unbalanced, and things start to fragment if you're not careful.
And that helps keep you together.
It does for me.
All right, right on. I got another question here for you before we go to break. It's, what was something in your life about which you thought you had always been right, and then at some point you realized I was flat out wrong about that?
I think early on, my goal was to quote unquote kind of empire build. It's all, let me go get this money, go get these things. And was pre-recession, which started in about 2008 for people that were in the industry. It was a, pretty devastating time. 1928, 2008 have some things in common with the Great Depression and the Great Recession. Yeah. Well, prior to that, things were going pretty good, and I was achieving a lot of the goals that I thought were the important goals. But what I discovered is I was pretty miserable. When I had the most amount of money, I was the least complete. And so I had to do some serious adjusting to what were my real goals and what kind of person do I really want to be. And that didn't happen overnight. I mean, that took a lot of pain to get through some things. I just heard the other day a couple of friends that were talking about this subject a little bit, and she said, I wouldn't wish the pain on anybody, but I would wish the process on everybody.
Yeah. And
I thought that was a pretty unique statement when you can look back sometimes in life and it's a little bit, turbulent or devastating at times.
Yeah.
Sometimes during the time you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, but when you can look back, you're lucky you went through it. And for me, just what I was all about, what I thought I knew, and what I ended up figuring out was a little different.
Yeah.
Just took a while.
I think that's a common experience for people in business too. I know at other times in my life too, I've wanted to have all the things so that I could do all the things and be who I thought I wanted to be, and I had it all backwards. It really is about if you can be who you want to be, then you're going to naturally be able to do and then have. It's changing that order up to be, do, have. But putting the being part first makes a huge difference. So yeah, it's a lesson I think we all are fortunate to learn. If we can have it, although it comes with a lot of pain, right?
Yeah, and you just the idea of you don't have to win, you don't have to have somebody else lose.
Yeah.
I mean, you live in abundance.
I love that one. Yeah.
And live in abundance, not scarcity.
Yep.
And I think in the beginning of any, most youthful, exuberant careers, let's chalk it up to that anyway.
Yeah.
That was kind of a major shift. I think there's enough real estate business, for example. Doesn't really matter how much we do. I wish the best for everybody, and I think living in that abundant mindset and living in that state of gratitude is a big deal.
Yeah, I love that. For you to win doesn't mean that somebody else has to lose. I was just talking with a friend the other day, and he said, I'm kind of at a point in my life now where I really want to be happy for everybody. Because when I'm happy, genuinely happy for other people, then I'm happy, myself as well. So
exactly.
Yeah, cool. Hey, we're going to take a quick break, but we're going to be back more to find out what makes this guy tick over here. So stay with us. Hey everybody, welcome back to Live It Up. We're talking here today with Russ McClellan, a successful entrepreneur, local entrepreneur who's been in the real estate industry for about 30 years, and he's just sharing some of the things that have impacted him and allowed him to get where he's at today. And one of the things I wanted to ask is, who have been some of the influences in your life? Because clearly you're a positive person, and you've got a go get 'em attitude and make things happen. So who instilled that in you?
I think for me it's pretty simple. I have two of the greatest parents on the planet.
Nice.
They've been married 63 years this month, and growing up in a town like Manson, it was a different place. It's still an amazing place, but at that time, it was a very special agricultural-based small town, and there was a lot of small towns with a lot of pride. But growing up with parents that basically said, the only thing you can do wrong is not to give it everything you got. I joke around, and when I give seminars and talk about this once in a while, I literally had a mom that if I went to her one day, and let's say I'm 17, I want to be a good, I think, Mom, I want to be a bank robber. Literally, she would be so optimistic, she would say, I think you'd be a good bank robber.
I mean, the best bank robber in the country.
I'm not sure if that's all healthy, because it did instill a go for it attitude.
Yeah.
And it's just a joke, but the idea that, you can climb that, you can jump that, it doesn't matter, whatever your goals are, they're achievable, and you should set higher ones.
What a gift.
So, yeah, and my dad, he grew up, his dad died in front of him when he was 8 years old. I mean, it was a different time. He got drafted into Korea. I was kind of the oops baby, so I was almost like an only child. I have 2 older sisters, and one of them actually works with me in administration right now. But when I grew up, I mean, I was a guy surrounded by a bunch of mentors like my dad. We were able to rodeo for a long time as a kid. Dad's a cowboy. I always describe him as he's a lot like John Wayne, just a lot smaller, but not any less tough, right? Like that's just the mentality of those guys and those mentors. So I think it takes a village.
Yeah.
Kind of. So when we look around, I mean, there was some beautiful human beings that to this day are amazing friends, and I think all in all, those roots really help get through those times that are up and down in life if you're going to go for it, because you do have to realize risk is risk.
Absolutely.
And sometimes that is painful to figure out. That's not just a word.
Right.
And then what do you do?
Yep.
What's next?
Yep.
So you got to live with the best, live with the worst, and then I always tell my agents too, hey, whatever happens to you, that's not what defines you.
Right.
It's maybe what you do next defines you.
Exactly.
So
what are those next decisions you're going to make in light of what just happened?
Yeah, none of us fear or what, but I didn't have a choice. I mean, my dad's going, "You're getting up. We're going to do it again." I don't really care.
That's good.
So, but it's through love, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he wants the best for you.
Yeah.
So I know you're a reader. So what are a couple books that you've read that have been influential and that you would recommend?
I think, sometimes, I do listen a lot. I use audible.com a lot because I travel back and forth from Wenatchee. So I take that time to try to just inspire myself, coach myself through smarter people.
Yeah.
They say often you can build a business on the shoulders of giants because, reinventing the wheel every day is exhausting.
Yes.
So the idea is not to become somebody else, but just to tap a couple nuggets. 2 of the books I like are, one of them is The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, which just talks about doing little things. So often I think we set big goals, and then, I want to lose 20 pounds. Okay, well, a week at the gym, you see it on January 1st every year. There's a lot of people there.
Yep.
A week later, we miss a day or 2, we get discouraged, so we just stop.
Yeah.
Instead of focusing on the little steps. And if you focus on the little steps, if you miss one, it's not so devastating. Right? If you're focusing on the big step and you're not seeing an instant results, instant gratification, but those little things. So that book, Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, was good. Also, I was able to meet a guy named Hal Elrod who wrote a book called The Miracle Morning, which to me, I needed to make some changes in my life, during the recession and, emotionally, physically, spiritually, financially, and just getting up early, starting that day out, doing a few things like journaling, meditating, working out a little bit. Just kind of gave me a backbone or a guide.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty easy read. So I think those 2 guys were, there's a lot of other great books out there and a lot of beautiful, amazing people that write them, but those 2 simple messages for me were big.
Cool. I love it. Well, we're just about out of time, so I want to thank you for being on the show and acknowledge you for all the cool things you do in our community and all the ways you helped people and help new agents coming on board. And again, if people want to connect with you, tell them where you're at.
We're right across the street here in Wenatchee from McDonald's at 1111 North Mission Street. You can give us a call anytime. Our number is 888-0038 locally, but we do have agents in just about every city now in North Central Washington and having a good time.
Thanks, Russ.
Thank you.
All right, guys, you know what it's time to do now? It's time to get out there, be a source of kindness, be a source of contribution. You have something to offer this world, and I believe in you.